On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, invisible, silent, stolen. Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary are on the hunt for Red October. The Soviets have developed a technologically superior nuclear submarine that could begin World War III, and it's heading straight for us. While the rest of the government is preparing for the attack, CIA analyst Jack Ryan has a different idea. He believes that Captain Ramius is planning to defect. Now he has to prove it. Quentin and Roger discuss their first experiences watching the film, how John McTiernan perfectly cast these roles, and analyze both the strengths and weaknesses of the film. Then, over on Patreon, we've got two films that fit the Video Archives classic format. First up, he's a boxer, she's a knockout, and together they score. In 1981's Body and Soul, a young man struggles with the sudden success of becoming a boxing champion, and it's his girlfriend who is tasked with bringing him back down to earth. The guys discuss the importance of movies made for Black audiences, the real-life romance that spawned this film, and a superlative appearance by the greatest of all time. Lastly, we're in the Bronx with Death Promise. You guys, I don't want to give anything away, but this is a regional kung fu film that should be a total classic. A dojo takes on filthy rich landlords? Sign me up. I'm Gala Avary, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary.
And thank you, Gala. This is Quentin Tarantino.
I'm Roger Avary.
And we're here for another exciting episode of Season 2 of the Video Archives podcast. And Josh, would you please kill the bacala?
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, so the first film up on our show is going to be a title that me and Roger got really excited about doing, and it kind of fit a good groove for us insofar as it was a movie we saw back in the day that we really liked.
Yeah, it's like everybody saw it.
Yeah, and we had really a lot of admiration for it. It's a really well-known title that people know about, but we haven't seen it in a long time, and I haven't really heard people mention it a lot in a long time, even though it's still stuck in your brain pan there. And that is John McTiernan's The Hunt for Red October.
The Russian disappeared. Invisible.
This thing could park a couple of hundred warheads off Washington and New York.
Stolen.
He's defecting. The Russians know this, which is why they've been trying to sink him for the past 2 days.
The hunt is on.
Now you want us to help you hunt him down and kill him?
Battle stations.
Give the man a chance.
From the director of Die Hard.
Torpedo is an acquisition!
From the best-selling novel by Tom Clancy.
We sail into history.
The Hunt for Red October. March 2nd.
Starring Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin and a whole passel of really cool actors. Now, this was a big movie for me and Roger, particularly when it came out, for one very specific reason. To this day, that first screening I had of Die Hard at the Avco Center Cinema, which was the movie McTiernan did before this film. That first screening where I ever saw a Die Hard is still one of the greatest screenings I've ever had for a movie in my life. It's one of those screenings that you keep going to movies hoping that you will repeat it. If you already know, if you live in a world where Die Hard has just already existed, that means nothing to you. You already know it's a terrific movie. What was so great about Die Hard is you didn't know that walking into it. It just seemed like a Bruce Willis action film. And he wasn't even the action guy. He still hadn't officially transitioned from TV to movies yet. And his first couple of movies were only so good, these Blake Edwards movies. Not only was it anything but a slam dunk that it was going to be good, it almost suggested like 3 strikes and you're out. Like this would be his last big attempt, and now he's just on moonlighting forever, and then on to the next show after that.
Walking out of this movie with you was like electricity, because I hadn't ever seen anything like it before. Right away, you were like, it was Desperate Hours.
Yeah.
Like Desperate Hours, like it was the way you had connected it to Desperate Hours instantly.
Look, since then, there's been Speed, there's been Matrix, there's been other movies. John Wick, you could say, it's not good enough to be in that category, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's not there.
But it's definitely in that
but in
subgenre.
But in that thing, well, you don't quite know what to expect. You just hope it's going to be a good version of what you're paying to see, the genre thing you're paying to see, and then it's just so drastically better than that.
It elevates the genre.
But Die Hard's better than that. I mean, it's just one of the greatest. It's so clever. It's just so clever, and it's so expertly made. I mean, made by this great master. And Predator is well done. You're interested in seeing the next movie the guy who did Predator did, but it's nowhere near as good as Die Hard.
Predator was, I thought, amazing.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's nowhere near as good as Die Hard.
I would actually say that when it came to the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I would say of the two directors that came out with a splashy movie, where I wanted to see somebody prove something was John McTiernan's follow-up film to Die Hard and Stuart Gordon's follow-up film to Reanimator.
Yeah, for sure.
I really kind of was invested in those guys being great. And I was really invested in them showing that the last movie they did wasn't a fluke. Well, in the case of Reanimator, it kind of was a fluke.
You mean in From Beyond?
Yeah. I like From Beyond.
Yeah, I love From Beyond. I actually, in some ways, prefer, but I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like Reanimator being,
and I like Dolls, but none of them have the excitement that Reanimator had.
Yeah, Reanimator was something special,
and maybe it was just the score.
Road Warrior to me, was like a reinvention or an elevation of the action genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been interested in George Miller, but then suddenly Road Warrior came out and it was like, okay, hold on a sec.
Yeah.
This is somebody who's like a master of that.
Yeah. And my whole thing was keeping the temperature on action directors of a given decade. So it's like, so Walter Hill and James Cameron have competition now?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's a new guy on the block. Roll over Beethoven, tell Spielberg the news.
And this was like a film school guy, basically.
Yeah.
Because,
he was at AFI, I believe.
Yeah, he was at AFI, and he had, come out of the AFI program, and bam, made that Pierce Brosnan movie.
Yeah, Nomads.
Yeah. Which Lance was a huge fan of Nomads. Lance turned me on to Nomads and got me really into it. And then when Predator came out, it was like, oh my God, this guy is he's like on a rocket. Well, and then next thing I didn't know how far that rocket was going to go. And then Die Hard.
Well, Arnold Rifkin told me that the reason
Arnold Rifkin, the agent at William Morris.
Yeah, who was Bruce Willis's agent. He goes, the reason Bruce signed up for Die Hard was because he watched Nomad.
Ah.
Even more than Predator. It was Nomad.
Wow.
That talked him into signing aboard. So we were very, very excited to see, okay, well, can this guy follow this up? And the storyline seemed really good. It was a very popular book, and it's one of those books that I didn't want to read, but the story sounded good, so I'm waiting for the movie version of it. Mm-hmm. And we go see it at the Cinerama Dome. I was blown away by the technique of the film.
Yeah, the skill. The craftsmanship.
Not entirely the film, but the technique of it just absolutely blew me away. I'm going to get into the story in a second. I'm talking ass backwards a little bit, talking about the technique before I go into the story, but I think that kind of applies for this movie.
In the world of submarine movies, I mean, we had Das Boot was kind of the high watermark at that point. This German, the Wolfgang Petersen film, which had done something that nobody had ever really done before, where the DP of that, whose name I don't remember in this moment, but he's an amazing DP who went on to do lots of Hollywood movies, basically built his own Steadicam, which was a completely unique Steadicam design, a camera stabilization system that he himself could carry kind of on the front of him so he could move through that submarine.
Yeah.
And flow through that submarine, get these shots that traveled through it. And we had never seen anything like that. Well, Jan de Bont's work in this goes way further than that.
But he's also able to build a set that can build around those shots and then get operatic when he wants.
Multiple sets. Multiple submarines.
Yeah, multiple submarines, exactly.
All on gimbals.
When I saw Hunt for Red October, I was like, okay, yeah, boom. There's a new guy in town. It's absolutely, it's for sure. The new epic filmmaker of the generation is going to be John McTiernan. There's only so many directors that when they close their eyes and they make the movie in their mind that have a natural proficiency for epics.
Yeah.
For epic filmmaking. And that's when they close their eyes. They can't stop it. They can't help it. When the movies that they see in their heads are epics. And there's horses and there's tons of extras and there's moving cameras and there's a giant production design and it's all orchestrated to a T. The rest of us mortals have to kind of build it up a piece at a time to get those effect. But some fortunate few, actually, it can be unfortunate depending on the story, just naturally think like that. Okay, now, so obviously David Lean is somebody like that, and so is Spielberg, but I think the number one director that you think about when you think in terms of like that would probably be Otto Preminger.
Sure.
All right. And John McTiernan, he's a combination of Tony Scott and Otto Preminger.
Yeah.
All right. You know,
said.
It's got the look and the sizzle and the hipness of Tony Scott imagery and lighting and everything, but it doesn't have the attention disorder editing style.
Yeah. He's thinking classically.
It's a classical Tony Scott.
Yeah.
It's more about orchestrating the longer dolly move, the crane move. You know, it's about I'm sure his cut, all those shots run a lot longer because I'm sure he wants them longer, but he cuts them down.
Yeah.
You know, as it goes on. But as opposed to Tony Scott, where it's like cut. Everything. That's
use
the
it
rhythm.
all.
That's the rhythm. Yeah.
Every angle and use it all. Well, it's funny you mentioned David Lean because Terrence Marsh is the who did the production design on this movie, who built all those sets on those gimbals and gave those submarines unique looks. Is the guy who did Dr. Zhivago.
Oh, well,
and A Bridge Too Far and a bunch of other.
Well,
this is a guy who knows how to do big epics.
Well, that would make sense that he would hire those guys. Okay, so now I'll get to the reading the back of the box. This is an Eddie Brands tape 19905. Based on Tom Clancy's bestseller, directed by John McTiernan, and starring Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin, The Hunt for Red October seethes with high-tech excitement and sweats with the tension of men who hold doomsday in their hands. A new, technologically superior Soviet nuclear sub, the Red October, is heading for the U.S. coast under the command of Captain Marco Ramius, Connery. The American government thinks Ramius is planning to attack. A lone CIA analyst, Baldwin, has a different idea. He thinks Ramius is planning to defect, but he only has a few hours to find him and prove it, because the entire Russian naval and air commands are trying to finish him too. The hunt is on! Exclamation point. Well, that's a pretty short and sweet, gets right down to it.
And that essentially is the movie.
What's good about it is it has the perfect kind of pitch that can fill itself on the inside slipcover of a novel. You know, so you go, okay, what's this about? And you read it and like, oh, wow, that sounds good.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that. Or I'd like to read that. Well, this does that. And I always knew that was that. Hey, that sounds like a neat idea. The story is the story, and the story is very good, and they do a really good job with it for a long period of time. And we'll get into whatever we think the deficits of it are or some of the whys and the wherefores of the story. But you cannot talk about Hunt for Red October without talking about the technique. And I'd been away from the movie for a very, 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 very long time. I hadn't seen it in maybe 20 years, or longer than that, I'm sure.
Me too.
And it's just the kind of thing that's right up me and Roger's alley. So it was really fun to sit down and watch it. And the entire first act, which is pretty much like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, almost 40 minutes, it was beyond great. It was
I couldn't believe it.
Like one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. Am I exaggerating?
No, when we started it off, from the opening shot, which is an epic wide shot of what I'm assuming is Siberia or something like that, where they're putting off port. And then it cuts to like a Leone close up, tight on the eyes of Sean Connery.
Sean Connery's gray eyebrows, gray caterpillars,
looking out over it all. Yeah. I mean,
furry hat.
and the music
and the Basil Pasadorius, boom, and the stuff,
and the wind with the wind that like that cold wind. I mean, you immediately are dropped into what can only be described as peak cinema.
Yeah,
you've got the guy who's just made Predator and Die Hard. He can almost write his ticket.
Absolutely.
He has all the resources brought to him. You've got Mace Neufeld. You've got the military giving you all of their resources to make your movie perfect. Everyone is giving you everything there. I'm sure there was nothing he couldn't do that he didn't want to do.
And bringing a little bit from one of our other episodes recently, they kind of attack it in the Ed Small, George Bruce kind of way.
Totally George Bruce. All right. Tight. It moves. It's
not just about adapting this brilliant version of this novel. It's about taking this novel and turning it into a crackerjack movie.
Yeah.
And they do a fantastic job, especially of setting up the story and telling up the story.
You learn everything you need to know about the characters organically.
It's a tricky story because part of the thing about the story is it's got an irresistible setup about, like, is he defecting? Is he not defecting? Even though we all know he's defecting.
Yeah, and they only bother playing that just for the first, I don't know what it is, 15 minutes, let's say, where they take it just as long as you can bear.
Yeah.
And then they reveal it. So you're along with the movie. You're feeling like you're on top of what's happening.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin is the one guy out who gets it, But when we see some of the scenes with the Russians on the sub, we know that is their plan. But here's the interesting part that they have to withhold, and this is one of the things that they do a really good job of, and it holds up throughout most of the movie. Like the hijackers that are in the subway car in Taking a Pelham 123, part of the thing is, well, how the fuck are they going to get out?
Yeah.
You don't understand how, and to me, in 3 different versions of that movie, they've never solved that, all right? I still don't buy how they got out. Well, in The Hunt for Red October, it's the same thing. Well, what is his plan? They can't pull it off if the crew is on the ship, and obviously everybody in the crew isn't involved, but Ramius has to have a plan.
Yeah.
What is the plan? And they're able to hold off telling us what the plan is for a long enough time, but it's also really intriguing. You want to know, well, what's going on? And then you've got the Alec Baldwin character and the Sean Connery character on 2 opposite ends, getting closer and closer and closer together.
There's this moment in the movie where it really takes off. Like, you're wondering, what is going on? We know that the Russians have a new kind of sub.
Yeah.
It can run silent. It has caterpillar drive, they call it, which means that it can run silently. It's some sort of electromagnetic propulsion system.
It can put 30 nuclear warheads off of the coast of Miami Beach, and you would never know if they were there.
So Ramius is doing one of 2 things. He's either gone rogue to deliver those missiles, or he's defecting. He's doing both of them, require action by the Soviet military, but he's got a political officer on board, played by, is it Peter Finch?
Not Peter Firth.
Peter Firth.
Who had just done Life Force, only like 2 years earlier.
Yes, he was just in Life Force. And he's playing basically a KGB agent who's on board to make sure that the captain does what he's supposed to do. And so when the time comes, up till now, we're Russians on a ship. I'm thinking of like the movie The Beast in some ways, which didn't actually do this, but you're always having to deal with the subtitle issue. And are we going to have Sean Connery speaking subtitles through the whole thing?
No, especially like one you have to learn Russian and everything. All right, but the thing about it though is also it's whenever you do a World War II movie, it's like, okay, are we going to do the British Nazis, all right, where they all talk with a vague British accent like Christopher Plummer? Or are they going to have a German accent? We are killing the girl tonight, old man. Old man.
Would you like a cigarette in the
Would you like a cigarette, old man? Did you hear me, old man? We are killing the girl. Or are they going to speak just German?
Yeah, exactly. Through the whole movie, are they going to play it classy like that?
Yeah. So it's always a decision. Which way is it going to go?
And what they do can only be described as the unified field theory for subtitles. He solves the problem that everyone had always had once and for all. He did it in an elegant way that provided a cinematic gesture I had never seen. While Peter Firth is
as Putin,
as the character Putin, the KGB agent Putin,
who looks exactly like Putin.
It's actually kind of incredible. They have him reading, like, I don't know if it's Dostoevsky or Nietzsche. I think it's Dostoevsky, and he's reading it, and like they zoom in, and then on a key word or key moment, he zooms back out, and in that moment, it switches from Russian to English, and it is so elegantly and perfectly done.
It doesn't take anything away from it. I thought he invented it. He didn't.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, but you know what? That frequently happens. I thought I've invented stuff, and then you discover there's some silent movie from,
But, sort of like Paul Thomas Anderson has his big Steadicam shot through the party and everything.
Yeah, well, that's I Am Cuba.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought he invented this, but apparently they do the same thing in Judgment at Nuremberg.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's perfectly employed as a device here.
I think he does it better here. I mean, I don't sit here in movie theaters, even when I was young and enthusiastic. I didn't sit in movie theaters and say, genius! Yes. When I saw that, I thought, genius.
Yeah. That was a moment when you see a filmmaker do something and you're in awe.
I take my hat off.
Yeah.
I bow.
And it has to be said that we're in the submarine. We're in this tight submarine. We're in a tight cabin. And I know that it's all sets and everything, but the way Jan de Bont is constantly letting the camera flow around and move around, it doesn't matter our confined space. It doesn't matter that it's just two characters. We feel Dr. Zhivago. We feel the epic scale. It never feels small. The movie never, ever feels small. And in that moment, not only does it not feel small, it feels like you're in the hands of a master filmmaker.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I hadn't thought about that before, but it's actually kind of interesting because normally claustrophobia is what you would be going for in a submarine movie.
Right.
And this is definitely close enough, but you don't have the oppression of claustrophobia because it's just so fluid and it moves so much and
effortless.
It keeps the pace going.
I mean, you and I know how big a camera package is, and when it's resting on a dolly and you've got the crew behind it and you've got the cameraman sitting on a seat, we know what it entails. Even if it's sitting on a small Luma crane or something like that, we know that this all takes up space. When that camera swings around, you've got a mag on it. It's probably a back mag, and the fluidity with how he's shooting it, the depth of the lens, the color, everything about what we're seeing is just, it's electric. And it's the inside of a submarine, like to this point, I had never seen before.
They're able to cut between the Scott Glenn, which is the American submarine.
So perfectly playing, you would believe it's
as
real.
Perfectly cast as a person can be cast in a film. That they can cut between the Scott Glenn submarine and then the Red October, the Russian submarine, and you know exactly where you are almost at the cut.
Yeah.
At the cut. And part of it is the uniforms, but it's the color scheme.
It's the darkness. One is a little darker than the other.
Yeah.
Like they definitely gave both of the ships their own personality so that you immediately know what boat you're on when you're on that boat.
And the Red October is more it's a war machine. So there's a more warlike vibe.
Yeah.
All right. Even though they're not planning on attacking America right now, there's a warlike vibe to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we haven't really talked about Alec Baldwin, and he is actually his character is a very important part of why the film works. Ramius has a plan because the situation is, this is a brand new weapon that completely changes the balance of power when it comes to the Cold War. The Russians and the Americans have fallen into a little space where one moves up one space on the board game board, and then the other one moves up one space on the board game board. Nobody's technology has outclassed the other technology.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Connery even says that at one point. Our game with the Americans.
With our old adversaries, the Americans is back again.
Now we shall continue our cat and mouse game with the Americans.
But by creating a nuclear submarine with this type of power, and it being able to run completely silently, so they would be able to get past all of their sonar. Well, that just changes the game.
I mean, in a way, this is the Firefox plane.
Yeah, exactly.
For submarines.
So Ramius is, even though they make it a point, he's not Russian, he's Lithuanian. He is not a traitor to his army. He's such a good soldier, and he's trained all their submarine captains. He's just knowledgeable enough to know, no, the only reason this submarine is built is to start a war. This is the first strike weapon. This is meant for World War III. And he decides that the only course of action is either it gets sunk, so it's destroyed, or he gives it to the Americans. So the Americans.
So the technology is to everybody.
Yes, exactly. So one side in this
diffuses the advantage.
One side in the Doomsday game doesn't have. They lose their advantage.
Yeah.
Now it's not a weapon for World War III anymore. It's just the next weapon on the list.
Right.
But it's a delicate game. He's got to play. How does he make contact with them? How does he let them know his true intentions?
And who are his Confederates on board? We basically discover most of his bridge officers.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know who.
Who's with him? Who's against him?
Well, how many people are involved?
How could you possibly do this with a whole submarine?
Yeah, you can't have an entire crew that would agree with this. And then eventually we learn. Okay, no, it's it's his officers group.
It's everyone but the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason for that, and we don't know exactly why are they keeping this guy around. But then there turns out to be a reason. Played by Tim Curry, who's very good in the film.
Tim Curry's fantastic.
He's very good in the film. But Ramius is such a senior position that when it comes to every officer around that captain's table, he can choose who he wants to be there. So that is possible. So anyway, the American military has heard that the Red October is out in the water, and they start believing that maybe it has this kind of special capability, and all these other Soviet ships are out there. What's going on? And Alec Baldwin just plays a CIA analyst. Part of the pretext of the movie is he's not a man of action. The pretext of the movie is he's simply just a guy who knows a lot of shit.
Yeah. Or at least they think of him like that because he's an analyst.
Yeah, exactly.
And we also don't know. His true history isn't revealed until a little later.
Yeah. But
when we realize this guy has grit.
Yes. Yeah. But it's like they keep putting him in military uniforms just for camouflage, but he's actually not a military guy.
Yeah, he keeps having to apologize for it.
Yeah. And so finally he has to brief the chief executive of the president, played by Richard Jordan, who almost steals the movie. Almost steals the movie. He's so good.
Yeah, he plays such an.
And I don't like Richard Jordan, but I love him in this.
He plays such an asshole in this, but he's our asshole.
He's our asshole. He's our oily politician.
Exactly.
So they're having the briefing, and they just have to assume, oh my God, a renegade general has just gone nuts with a bunch of warheads. We got to sink this motherfucker. And while this is all going on, Alec Baldwin's Jack Ryan, in one of sounds like hyperbole. I think one of the more audience gratifying exposition scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah, with amazing sound design.
And I do think Alec Baldwin's golly gee appreciation of it really sells it.
Yeah, he
sells the scene. It's his scene.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. He sells it. All right.
Everybody's arguing like the wah-wah in the room is to a crescendo.
I think it's his best scene he's ever done because he has to sell it.
Yeah.
And it's practically a comedy scene the way he sells it. He puts together, okay, well, I've got a strange idea. What if he's trying to defect? What are you talking about?
Okay, all these war dogs what are you defect?
Okay. So, look, here's some points in my favor. And he starts making the case.
Yeah, well, today is his wife's...
Yeah, today is his wife...
The annivery of his wife's death? Is that what it is?
Of his wife's death. The fact that he would be able to put together his own team. Mm-hmm. And he just starts making the case. Well, he makes it good enough that they kick all the generals out. And Richard Jordan, the guy who answers to the president, says, do you think this could be real? Well, I think it's a possibility. Okay, so say I believe this. Say I believe that this is what's happening. What do we do? What do we do about it? Well, let's try to help him. Let's try to figure out a way for him to help him, hand it over to us. Okay, so look, here's the deal. They've got 6 days before they're going to get around anywhere where they could do any kind of damage. I'll give you 4 days to prove your theory and see if that is what he could be doing. After that, we have to sink him. It's just that simple. Okay, fine. All right. And so then the rest of the movie is Alec Baldwin's character ping-ponging and zigzagging from one place to another to figure out some way to make contact with Ramius to see if this is his intention and then to help facilitate it against all possible odds and against everyone thinking Alec Baldwin is crazy.
James Earl Jones plays the CIA director.
Yeah.
Very well. Very well. Like as if that's exactly who you want as your CIA director is James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
And
the American Olivier comes walking in. Yeah.
And up until this point, what they've done really well, screenplay wise, development wise, and developing this character is they've shown that Alec Baldwin is on his own track figuring things out. But the moment he figures things out, is the exact same moment the CIA has figured everything out. So they kind of come to realize, you know what, he's figuring this out with all of our resources and all of our intel and everything. This analyst on his own is figuring everything out a minute before we do.
Yeah.
And so
it keeps giving him credibility.
It keeps giving him more and more credibility.
Well, it gives him credibility to the characters on screen. It gives him credibility with us.
So finally, it's like, okay, come down to the Pentagon or wherever that war meeting is, and or Langley, and they go into the war room or everything, and he's just about to go into the meeting. It's like, okay, we're about to go into this presentation. Who's giving the presentation? You are.
Yeah.
And he's like, I am. What's great about it is his presentation is fantastic.
Yeah.
He's knowledgeable. He knows it. He's comfortable.
He knows the history.
He is the right guy to deliver it. It doesn't matter how unprepared he seemingly is.
He knows the history of Ramius, and he is if anyone is going to make contact with Ramius, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
And Richard Jordan's like, you're the only one who's going to be stupid enough to believe this stupid idea. All right. So you're the only one that's going to
go out and prove it. And now he's put into these fake uniforms. He's flown out onto a ship. Now all of a sudden he's in the trenches with the real guys. And we've been thinking about him as an analyst along this way. And there's only been one real clue of what's happened to him in his past prior to the movie taking place, which is, I think it's a shot on the, maybe that actually happens afterwards, where he's in the shower and he's just like letting hot water go on his back.
Yeah. And there's a couple of moments from time to time, people are, is your back okay?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it's not, being hung from that fucking helicopter.
Yeah, because they do this crazy move to get him in this amazing...
Some Airport 75 transfer thing.
Yeah, well, he shows how desperate he is.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and so he knows how bad it is. He disconnects and drops into the North Sea, which you only can live for 4 minutes.
All right, hoping that they're going to get him out. Yeah,
that's how desperate he wants on that boat.
Yeah.
And so then once he's on the boat, everybody's kind of giving him shit. They're like, this guy put us all through all this, and we got to do this and that, and this, just this analyst better be important. He's like, hey, cut that kid some slack. You want to know what happened to him? And then they give his story, his backstory, which is Jack Ryan was in a helicopter. He was a combat Marine. The helicopter went down.
Everybody died.
Everybody's dead, and he's fucked up beyond recognition. He's like in a bad way. He's in a very, very bad way. Has to
he's in a cast for a year and then another year to learn how to walk again.
And so suddenly we realize,
so why don't you cut the kid some slack?
Yeah. And there's that moment in the helicopter where suddenly the Marine side of him kicks in.
Yeah.
The combat Marine clicks in. He's like, no, we're going down there. He's like, oh, we're running out of fumes.
10 minutes, you fucking fly me there in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we got 10
minutes of fuel, you're going to fly over 10 fucking minutes.
Yeah, you're going to do it, you're going to get me under that thing right down. Like he suddenly, and you realize he's got grit.
Yeah.
He's a Marine. He's a tough guy. And
yet.
He's not just this analyst.
Yet, this is the deft move that Alec Baldwin does that makes it different than when Harrison Ford playing the character later. Something is lost when Alec Baldwin didn't carry on and everyone else did.
I have to agree, yeah.
Despite how disarmingly and almost distractingly handsome.
Oh my God, he's so beautiful.
As Alec, I knew how handsome Alec Baldwin was.
Well, he was the sexiest man of the year.
But apparently I forgot, all right? I thought I remembered. Both
of us were like, is it just me, or is Alec Baldwin really, really beautiful?
No, he's...
like, look at his eyes.
No, he's like dark-haired Lana Turner. I mean, he's just fucking gorgeous. It's ridiculous. All right, he's too good looking. But despite being distractingly handsome, ever just slightly in the margins, he channels a goofy analyst character.
Yeah,
and he's
been doing that role.
He's not a late '80s action hero. Well, he becomes it at the very end, and that's where it all falls apart.
Yeah, we actually prefer him as the analyst.
Yeah. But there is like a ever so slight touch of, dare I say, Jerry Lewis, just a little ever on the matte line margins.
Well, he's definitely got the frame and almost the face.
He's got the dark hair. He's got. When he smiles and when he laughs, there is a real openness to him. There's an ever so slight comic caricature of him slightly in over his head throughout the whole thing and him rising to the occasion. Okay, let's bring Gull in.
Dobry din, Roger. Dobry din, Quentin.
Ah, that's right. Gala speaks Russian. I forgot.
I speak just a little bit.
So you can fly the Firefox plane.
I know, right? So I can literally be thinking.
All right, you can think
Russian.
you can think in Russian. Can you think in Russian?
Yeah.
Actually, yes. Listeners will remember around the time of Amphibian Man, I was just starting, and now I am here.
Yeah, Gala's pretty much fluent now.
A little, not really. I can read it really well, but not speak it so well. The word that
She needs practice with some Russian boy.
Call me. The word that they zoom into the mouth on is Armageddon.
Oh.
And that's the word because it's the same in Russian and it's the same in English.
Okay.
All the better. All the better.
All the better. I tilt my hat once again to the master.
Genius.
And I think he's reading the I Am Death, Destroyer of Worlds.
Oh, so it's Nietzsche.
Yeah.
It's Nietzsche. And they basically start talking about this was written by the enemy. And he's like, well, you have to know like what the enemy thinks in order to know what you think. And
then it's his wife's diary.
Yes, and it's his
so you're
wife's.
supposed to be reading Dostoevsky, but why are you reading Nietzsche?
And the Putin character also got me because I'm like, did he just kill Putin? Or is that just like some guy with the same name as Putin?
No,
But
it's
it looked
Putin. It's
him.
definitely Putin. Look at
I mean, he looks exactly like Putin.
No, he does. And so I was like, oh my God, he just killed Putin.
He just killed Putin. I know.
You just snap Putin's neck.
There's a few like really interesting things in this movie, and one of them, and Dad, you might remember this story, but at the very beginning of the movie, when all the radar technicians are kind of around their radar and they're telling the story of
that joke, about the guy listening to the music.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Pavarotti.
Do you remember when Andy, my godfather, Andy Milburn, who's Dad's composer, was telling us about the radar technicians because he was going to go learn with that guy in Long Beach about radar because it's always musicians that are the best at doing radar technician.
Because they have the ear. And that's actually and I don't remember the character's name nor the actor's name.
Courtney B. Vance?
Yeah, is that the guy who plays the black guy who plays the radio technician? He's almost the character that the audience is meant to identify with in some ways.
But it also shows American ingenuity because even though the Russians can come up with this type of technology, one lone American guy can figure it out, all right? And so they're able to track the Red October. At a certain point, they're able to track the Red October as if it was just not silent at all.
Yeah.
But what's also so cool is, so one, they have the musician thing, which I think is great. And Tom Clancy is obviously like, he's one of the greatest spy writers of all time. But the music thing is so cool because Andy was telling me about that. And then in order to have them first see the Red October, Sean Connery has his crew sing. Yeah. Because the vibration is what gives them away. So it's
music is what connects people.
Yeah. Music is what connects people.
Quentin, you described this movie as we were watching it as like this overwhelming urge for these two hands across the ocean to kind of connect. Like to,
well, you've seen movies where it's like two warring sides leading battles, but they don't see each other, but they're always dealing with each other. All right, like Line of the Desert, where it's like Oliver Reed's Italian general fighting Anthony Quinn's barbarous pirate, or Sean Connery in Wind of the Lion with Brian Keefe's Theodore Roosevelt.
Respecting your adversary.
Yeah, they kind of respect each other. I'm fighting them, but they're not in the same room. Their armies are coming together. Well, it's a similar dynamic, except they're not fighting. They're actually trying to shake hands.
Yeah, and music being a kind of universal language that brings people together.
But it's the same format of like when it's a warring situation, but to an opposite end.
Yeah.
They can finish each other's conversation, and they're the only two who can.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is that Alex Baldwin's character really hates turbulence. And that's kind of where we first get the thing is when he's on the airplane and he tells the stewardess that he can't sleep on planes because he doesn't like the turbulence. And then he describes how turbulence is formed. It's like, it's like when the Earth's mantle gets the radiation and it like buckles.
Magma intrusions.
Magma intrusions. And she's like very confused as to why he can't sleep on planes. I was like, wow, she's really judgmental of him. But
they're obviously making a point.
But they're making a point. But I love that it's like his fear is turbulence, which he has to get over throughout the movie, like when they have him flying over.
Like army shit, which is nothing but...
But it's turbulence versus silence. Because the sub is like the ultimate silent, smooth device. And
it runs quiet.
It runs quiet. And his big thing is the turbulence. So it's like, it's the kind of their dichotomy. This movie has it has a few really great lines, but it has two really great lines. One in the war room where he starts arguing with the general, and the general goes, "You're an analyst. What would you know?" I was thinking an analyst would know a lot because they analyze things. He's an analyst.
Yeah.
And the other one is after the war room when all the generals leave and the politician or the right hand to the president comes and says, "I'm a politician, so I'm a cheat and a liar. When I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops." Love that line. And that delivery was so good that he did.
Richard Jordan is so perfectly smarmy in this role, playing the politician. And at first, you're meant to kind of hate him.
It's a great cast of supporting actors fighting for best utility player, but it's hard to dislodge James Earl Jones, but I think Richard Jordan kind of does it. I mean, only Scott Glenn's perfectness, all right, gives him any kind of...
you're right. Scott Glenn. Well, everyone is perfectly cast in this movie, cast by Amanda Mackie, who did Gladiator and A League of Their Own. Every single person is great. Even Jeffrey Jones, who plays like a longshoreman engineer, naval engineer for the CIA.
His phony beard kind of bugs me. I mean, you can tell it's a phony beard, all right?
I never think of him as being this kind of masculine guy. And in this, I guess what I'm getting at is that every single actor in this is very well cast. Sam Neill feels realistic.
Well, Sam Neill is really good.
I love Sam Neill in this movie, even when he.
It has that Christopher Nolan and Dunkirk kind of thing where he can get the right people and he gets just the right perfect person to fill his mosaic and to tell his epic story.
Exactly.
So there are a few what I feel maybe failings with the movie. I don't really want to use that term.
No. We've just been saying all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We've been waiting to get to wait for you,
the Queen hater, to come into the conversation. Okay, first off, the Russian accents are just terrible. Like,
well, it's probably Russian. No. It's probably Russian in with a bit of a Welsh turn.
That's
you know?
Well, they're fine enough when they're speaking Russian. All right,
unless you speak Russian.
But here's the thing.
At least Peter Firth is.
Well, Peter Firth is fine. But the funny thing about like a Russian accent is they are so particular about your accent. Like, I know I have a terrible speaking accent. That's just a given. But like if you're from St. Petersburg or from Moscow or from anywhere in Russia, they'll know based on your accent and then judge you. And I had a Russian guy tell me this, and he was like this older Russian guy that learned that I was learning, and he was like, "Oh, well, you have to learn from like this, like from someone from St. Petersburg because that's the right accent." I was like, "Okay." So these accents
speak like you're from Azerbaijan.
These accents are not great, but when Sean Connery starts speaking English, he's not even attempting a Russian accent. He's just being Sean Connery.
He's Sean Connery.
Look. I want Sean Connery to sound like Sean
Connery.
But
I don't really hate it because
I like it.
But okay, now it's interesting though because I don't think he learned Russian and that he just learned enough to get through.
No, just to speak the dialogue.
And he probably had to redo all of that in ADR.
But he actually speaks Russian, if I'm not mistaken, full on in the John le Carre novel, Russia House.
Oh, yeah, in Russia House.
I actually think he actually speaks full on Russian, but because he didn't care about this movie. All right, this was a money project for him. This was a money, big movie, I get to be a star project, where Russia House, that was a movie he wanted to make.
Yeah, and also he made sure I'm only on stage, right? We're not going on location. I see that there's a location at the end of the movie. Let's do that on stage, shall we? We're going to do that on stage. Right, John?
Well, I didn't really mind him not attempting like a Russian accent or really like, I feel like, or even trying. Because in Nomads, so I had seen The Hunt for Red October once before, so I rewatched it, and then I decided to check out a John McTiernan movie that I had not seen, so I picked his first one, which was Nomads. Yeah. Because I've seen Die Hard, I've seen Medicine Man.
It's one of the best first films by a film student, like coming right out of school.
Yeah, and I think Nomads, the first like 30 or 40 minutes of it, I think is really good, and then personally, I feel like it just kind of completely falls apart. But
it's well directed.
It is really well directed.
And it's a wonderful kid coming out of film school.
He's coming out, he's showing off.
And doing a feature.
And those first like 30, 40 minutes are like, wow, like this is really amazing. But Pierce Brosnan's French accent in it is so terrible.
You just have to put up with it.
I was so thankful that John McTiernan did not make Sean Connery do a Russian accent. I was like, okay, he learned. Just let Sean Connery do whatever.
It's a movie. I'll just do by myself. People are paying to see.
And they are paying to see Sean Connery. The other thing is just like the movie after a while, in my opinion, just kind of like loses momentum.
We know exactly the moment that it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So when would you say it is?
Okay, I'll tell you exactly. So the thing about it is, and it doesn't fall apart. You more or less understand what's going on.
It's more like you tune out a little bit.
You described it.
Defocuses.
That is what it is. Its pace is so strong, it starts slacking in pace. And it's almost like it gets off the rails a little bit, like a train hops the track a little bit, but it can still move forward, but it's not moving forward smoothly. And that starts during that weird little scene when it has to negotiate through that canyon with all those hills.
And they're intercutting.
Yeah.
Almost like a montage.
Yeah. No, not that. No, that's later. All right. But I'm talking about that first one when he's got to negotiate them through.
Right, where they're traveling through to the twins or whatever it is.
Yeah. They got to get past all those mountains.
The rocks.
All the rock, like a rocky canyon.
Yeah.
Like Lone Pine, all right, under the sea.
Yeah.
As opposed to everything else in the movie up until that time where you kind of know where you are. You don't quite know where you are. You can figure it out. But for a moment, you do have to figure it out. But what you've never figured out is they've got a route to go. And Connery is insisting that they do something else. And he's insisting that they do something else that is like a lot more dangerous. But now he ends up being right. But you're wondering, well, why is he testing it? All right, unless it's just to make the audience and the characters question, is he gone crazy? But I mean, if you have a way to get through it, why fuck around? Why monkey around? Even if you are right, well, what if you're wrong? I mean,
why put everything at risk?
Yeah,
which he does.
Well, especially with what he's trying to do, it doesn't make sense why he would do that. And like I said, everything else up until that time, we kind of knew where we were. Here, even that, we have to figure it out. And then it's just like the next 15 or 20 minutes all kind of fall from that same place of now looseness, and now things are getting further away. And then it has that bad scene.
It's like the introspective, montagey, create tension in...
Chris Nolan cross-cutting back and forth to try to create tension between the Scott Glenn ship and the Hunt Red October ship. But while that's going on, you got people listening, and they're all trying to listen to for the submarine. Meanwhile, Sam Neill and Sean Connery have this really bizarre conversation.
A long conversation,
and that it just doesn't work. Not only does it not work, McTiernan realizes it doesn't work, and he tries to make it work with a weird score.
Or rather, somebody at the studio.
Yeah.
And McTiernan is trying to hold on to his darlings in that scene. But I think what's happening is those are the moments where Sam Neill is supposed to be wavering in his resolve and questioning Ramius himself. And so they do all this cross-cutting with ominous music, kind of holding it all down. And there's even one bizarre shot that we watched where they cut to the radio
Courtney
guy.
B. Vance, for a second. That seems like a mistake.
They needed a cutaway of some kind, and somebody said, well, why don't we just cut to the guy listening? And it's just everything about that whole sequence is bizarre.
This film is so expertly made that I can't believe that it actually has the problem of a zillion movies.
It's a late second act problem, though.
Smack dab in the middle where you have a scene that the director feels is essential, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So then he has to fill it full of a bunch of bells and whistles in order to get it past. But he feels that the information said in there is so important that even though the scene doesn't work, he's gonna do a lot of shit to just get it across.
And the truth is, it didn't work the way they planned it. That was the best that they could get it, even with whatever reshoots they did. I'll bet they were never fully happy with it, with that little sequence. Yeah. And the problem is, normally in a normal movie, that would probably fly, but this movie is running on such high cylinder, high octane in the beginning that when you get to that, it just shows.
It's coming after 15 minutes where the air in the tires has been kind of floppy.
Yeah.
After it's been running on rails. But it was also one of those weird things where we're watching the movie, somewhere towards the end of that 40-minute first stretch, I'm like, well, this movie better fall off the rails a little bit, or what the fuck is wrong with me for not walking around thinking this is one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a masterpiece, all right, of this type of filmmaking.
And then it falls off the rails.
Yeah. But then it kind of stays that way.
But then I remembered watching that scene, I remember feeling that at the Cinerama Dome, thinking, why does all of a sudden nothing mean things don't mean what they did?
Yeah.
The movie's lost the thread.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is it's like you would think that because you've learned about the Alec Baldwin character and because you do learn about it midway, maybe more through the movie, and then because you've gotten to know the Sean Connery character, that those would keep you going through the movie. But and it happened with me the first time I saw it, and it happened with me again here. I just kind of tuned out like towards that point in the movie, and I just kind of lost interest. And it's so disappointing because, as you guys said, the beginning of the movie is so good, and like the changing of the Russian to English on the word Armageddon, and the characters that are like at the White House. And all of the little side characters, and even like Sean Connery with his group of officers, like saying like, "I can't believe you didn't." He's like, "Oh, the best working men are the ones when you like get rid of all the lifeboats. Like we have no other option but to go." All of that's interesting, and then it just like I'm kind of waiting like, aren't they going to get the Red October finally? Like, are they finally going to do it?
Well, I think there's more rooting interest than that for the simple fact that you want Alec Baldwin to make contact with Sean Connery.
Yeah,
and there is a vested interest in that. And I do think after that scene, the train wheels get on the track again. Now, you can say that maybe I don't ever care as much as I did the first time.
I would probably say that because I would say that as strong as that first 40 minutes is, post montage and post those clunky moments, at that point, everything feels like, okay, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen. And those almost become by rote. When
they finally do communicate with each other, is when they do the Morse code.
Using the periscope.
And just do the single click to say yes.
Yeah. But that's actually them talking to each other. That's actually Alec Baldwin saying, I know where finally Sean Connery has not reached a buckaroo. All right. He's reached a sensible man who can understand his mission.
That's a good sequence.
That's a good sequence. But if we felt the way we did earlier, it would be a magnificent sequence.
Yeah.
It would be orgasmic.
The music might not help through a lot of the movie, but I do think at the very end, the music does help kind of pick back up. And that music...
Well, Basil Polidorus is definitely pumping the movie along at a good, healthy pace.
But when they actually get into the little subcraft, all right, to go and actually board the Red October, that's really exciting. Okay? And you like that little group of guys. You like Courtney B. Vance, and you like... I like that guy. Like, hey... Somebody just shot a torpedo at me. That's Timothy Carhart. I like that guy.
Somebody just shot a torpedo at us. Can we just say what a run? I mean, Nomads included, but Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, and then Medicine Man.
Yeah.
I found the cure to the plague of the 20th century, and I've lost it.
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing in the film that was this little kind of melancholy aspect that hangs over it. His technique is so fantastic. And to know that this is its peak. It's never going to be this good again. It goes from Die Hard to this. And we can talk about some of the issues in the film, but the technique is just amazing. And the technique seems to promise.
Yeah, so much.
Even greater epics in the future.
And he's always, like, amazingly, he's a strong filmmaker. He's always competent, but it never peaks like this.
Yeah, and by the way, I've only seen it once, but I really, really like Die Hard with a Vengeance. I thought that was a really good film.
And I like Last Action Hero. I like things in Last Action. I like what Last Action Hero is saying.
I like what Action Hero is saying more than its execution.
And I think in many ways, I
like the script more than
the statement. Like, he makes Medicine Man, like he makes this, which is his respectable action epic. Then he makes Medicine Man, which is his important film, and no one cares.
Yeah.
And so then he makes his statement against everything that like lays ahead for him, which is you are an action, not only Last Action Hero, Last Action Director.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's that moment where Schwarzenegger looks at himself and says, "You've brought me nothing but pain.
Yeah.
You've brought me nothing but misery."
There's also something else that doesn't work in this film. All right. In the last half, it's got a really cool situation where you buy it more or less how they figure out how to get the crew off. I mean, one of the things that I really like storytelling wise that goes on in the film is Alec Baldwin's like, how's he going to get them off? How's he going to get them off? Well, Ramius has figured this out. So I just have to figure out what he's come up with.
Yeah.
So what would he do? They have to want to get off, and so that's all really, really clever, all that stuff. However, which I think probably works in the book, but does not work in the movie because they don't commit to it until they commit to it at the end, which is a terrible mistake, is there's a saboteur aboard. And actually, frankly, I don't like it because actually it makes better sense if there's no saboteur aboard and that it was actually Sean Connery who was sabotaging it to set up the story. That actually makes better sense than some lone cook running around.
The whole cook thing is just such a
what's a terrible
drag.
What's a terrible drag is you're right at the end where there's an American sub, there's an American battleship, and then there's an American sub, and then there's a Russian sub, and then there's a Russian sub that's after the Red October that's manned by Stella Skarsgård, who's like Connery's like number one cadet who's after him.
Now, I like to keep my bridge like a sauna. Like we're gonna sweat.
And he's smoking
and sweating, and like the hot bridge in my old crappy Russian sub.
What's the mission, Captain? We're going to kill a friend. We're gonna destroy Ramius. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So while all that is going on, which is enough with all your cross-cutting, great. They have to have the fucking saboteur show up and just start shooting guns. And now Alec Baldwin has a gun. And now, as opposed to not being like an 80s action hero through the whole movie, now all of a sudden he's like this 80s action hero, completely throws away the whole analyst, dorky guy in the middle of all this. Running around and he's posing and he doesn't look like the same character at all anymore.
And Alec Baldwin's not even taking it seriously at this point. Even he knows that this is not right for the character.
Even he knows that this is completely phony baloney.
He's doing Sean Connery impersonations for fun while crawling around.
Yeah. And he looks like an action figure doing stop motion. I mean,
and I'm sure that this was just a case of a screenwriter coming up with an idea of, hey, what about a shootout with them inside of the nuclear missile thing? Like, what if a bullet hits one of those? And I'm sure they just couldn't give up that idea. But the fact of the matter is they should have dropped that. It wasn't needed. It's against everything that the movie is about.
It's a terrible idea. It makes the film, it's like what I've said quite a few times on this season, where it's like, now the movie showed me what it was. I didn't think it was this, and then it just said no.
It couldn't resist.
It couldn't. Substitute was another one like that. It was like, oh, really? Now you're doing this? That makes you this kind of movie, and you weren't this kind of movie. You didn't have to be this kind of movie. You didn't have to be a cheesy late '80s action movie, but it is at the end.
I worked with Mason Neufeld a bit and got to know him as a writer, and I remember him telling me once, because I talked to him about Hunt for Red October, and he said, yeah, the thing about that movie is that, and that I've learned because of that movie, we went through, I think, 30 drafts on that script. And I always go back to the first draft. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that's why we wanted to make the movie.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the first draft.
Yeah.
So it just shows part of the Hollywood process. Well, that was probably what made part of it so great.
Yeah,
but that's also probably what made that ending become what it was.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's a big, naughty book, and I'm sure it's a very difficult book to figure out how to do it. And like I said, the first half, they do a fucking great job.
Well, this is a movie that spawned how many sequels? 1, 2, 3, 4, and a series.
Oh yeah. I guess 4.
Four. They did 4 movies. There was also because the Kenneth Branagh directed one, and
I kind of liked the Ben Affleck one. I think that was pretty good.
I haven't seen the Ben Affleck. That's the one Phil Alden Robinson directed.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I thought that was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, Philip Noyce directed a couple of them. Mm-hmm. And I think he tries to do the language thing again, the subtitle thing again, and it just kind of.
Well, I haven't seen it in a long time. I didn't like at all Patriot Games, but I really liked Clear and Present Danger. I actually thought they did a really difficult job of telling one of those multi-globe movies.
So I am waiting from the local video store, to see if they have a copy for The Hunt for Red October in stock before I go hunting on eBay. But I just want to shout out, Quentin, your red tape.
Yes. Okay. We didn't watch it on video. We watched it on my gorgeous Laserdisc, because this is one we definitely wanted to see.
Look
the right
ratio.
They
got red tapes. They actually got red VHS tape.
Yeah. All right. But for the video cassette, they actually went all out and made it a red Paramount video cassette, and it looks kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. To hear the rest of this episode, including discussions of 2 more movies and our award winners, sign up for the Video Archives Patreon. You'll get access to full Video Archives episodes, the Video Archives After Show, exclusive merch, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to subscribe today. The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.